Good evening and welcome to the Connecticut Department of Transportation's Public Information Meeting for proposed project number PP 158-009, which we will refer to simply as project number 158-009 throughout the presentation. This project involves the intersection improvements of Route 57 at Route 136 and Weston Road in the town of Westport. My name is Jennifer Usher, and I will serve as the MC for this evening's meeting. I would like to welcome everyone who's taken the time to tune in for tonight's presentation. We hope this will be informative and we are able to answer all of your questions and concerns so that by the time we are done, you'll have a better understanding of this project. Our agenda for this evening's meeting will be to first explain how you can participate in the virtual meeting environment. We will then introduce the project team. This will be followed by a presentation of the project, which will detail the purpose of the project, outline potential concepts and the preferred alternative, as well as the associated impacts, benefits, and cost. And finally, we will open it up to a question and answer session. Before we begin the presentation and introduce the project team, I would like to go over just a few housekeeping items and explain tonight's format. Our presentation will last approximately 25 to 30 minutes, and once complete, we will host a live Q&A session. You will have three means of communicating with us. You can send an email to dotproject-pp-158-009 at ct.gov. You can also leave us a voicemail by dialing 860-944-1111. If you have joined us this evening through MS Teams Live, you can also use the chat function as previously explained. The project team will monitor the project email, phone, and chat periodically during the presentation and the Q&A session. The questions asked by any of these methods will be posted to the MS Teams Q&A chat window. We will read all of the questions out loud for the project team to answer. You may ask questions at any time during the presentation, but we will address all comments and questions during the live Q&A session at the end. Additionally, a recording of tonight's entire presentation, including the Q&A session, will be stored on the project webpage. That webpage can be found at https://portal/pp.westport/158-009. Lastly, please remember that you can ask questions or provide comments through June 24th of this year via email or telephone. However, the MS Team chat function will only be available during tonight's Q&A session. We would like you to know that no person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. A civil rights flyer is available. We would greatly appreciate it if you could also fill out the voluntary post-meeting survey for the department. The results of the survey will help us improve these public meetings going forward. The links to both the civil rights flyer and the survey are located on the previously mentioned project webpage. I will now hand the presentation over to Marissa Paffinger.
Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Marissa Paffinger, and I lead the department's project development unit. We are responsible for scoping and initiating improvement projects around the state. Essentially, we're the group of engineers who tries to take an idea and turn it into an implementable solution. The project development unit is within the Division of Highway Design in our Bureau of Engineering and Construction. With me tonight is project engineer Shraddha Joshi and Matt Giannakopoulos, who is representing our Division of Rights of Way. The purpose of our meeting tonight is to review the proposed concept, provide information about how we arrived at that alternative, and then provide you all with an opportunity to ask questions or provide your feedback or thoughts. As noted, there will be a live question and answer session immediately following this presentation. It's important to note that the plans that we're going to review tonight do not represent an initiated project. We are still in the concept development phase, and the purpose of this ongoing public involvement is to inform and to solicit feedback. That means that no funding has been obligated, nor is any firm schedule available at this time. That being said, before we get into the details of this proposed improvement, I'd like to start by providing some information on the project development process. As I noted, we're currently in the concept development phase. This is the first step in how a project becomes a project. If concept receives support from the community and town, it would advance to the design phase, where the concept would be refined and developed to the point where construction plans are generated. This is important to note that because while the plans we have to share tonight have been prepared with considerable analysis and engineering, we work with the best available data to develop these plans. In this case, it was GIS information, aerial photography, and recently collected traffic counts. If the concept enters design, additional resources are available to gather more information, like a full 3D survey, and would be obtained to allow for more refinement and accuracy. Should a project advance, we would expect a minimum of 2 to 3 years for design activities before construction. So realistically, it would be unlikely that the construction would begin before approximately 2025. And again, these are approximate numbers, but it's important to clarify so that no one thinks there might be shovels going into the ground this summer. So one of the first questions that we usually receive at a meeting like this is, why are you looking at this location? So for some history, in 2019, the Western Connecticut Council of Governments, or WestCOG, on behalf of the town of Westport, requested that the PDU investigate the intersection to see whether any improvements could be made to address the existing congested traffic operations. Efforts to improve the area go back nearly 20 years with various concepts and proposals being developed, but no satisfactory solutions were ever advanced. To begin the concept development process, the PDU conducted a traffic analysis of the existing conditions to help quantify the traffic delay. A field review of the area was done to verify that the traffic modeling output reflected the real-world conditions, and then we also reevaluated some of the older concepts to understand what had previously been proposed and why it was not successful. From that point, we began the process of developing or refining new concepts. And for the details of that process, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Shraddha Joshi. Shraddha?
Thanks, Marissa. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shraddha Joshi, and I'm a project engineer in the Department of Transportation's Project Development Unit. I'll be presenting technical portion of the presentation tonight and answering questions later on. Our presentation tonight will cover project location, existing conditions, purpose of the project, proposed solutions, impacts, benefits, and cost of the proposed solution. Question and answer will follow the formal presentation. So let's start with the project location. This proposed project is located in the northern part of Westport at the intersection of Route 57 and Route 136. Route 57 runs in southwest to northwest direction, shown here in red, and Route 136 runs in southeast to northeast direction, shown here in light blue. Here's a closer look at the intersection. We are in close proximity to the Merritt Parkway exit 42 ramp intersections. The southern leg of the intersection, Route 57, is locally known as Main Street. The northern leg, Route 136, is known as Eastern Road, and the east-west approach is locally known as Western Road. The eastern leg of the intersection, Western Road, is owned and maintained by the town, while the other three are state roads. Looking at the existing conditions of the intersection currently has flashing red beacon with stop control on all four approaches at the main intersection of Route 57 and Route 136. There's a bypass connector leg for Route 57 on the western quadrant of the intersection that provides free flow movement for certain Route 57 movements. The bypass connector leg also provides access to Wasser Lane. Taking a closer look at the traffic controls at the southern leg of the bypass connector leg, there are two free flow movements shown with green arrow and one stop control shown in red arrow for traffic heading south on Main Street. Similarly, the northern end of the bypass connector leg has two free flow movements for Route 57 heading east and south, and there are two stop controls shown in red arrows for traffic heading west on Route 57. When the traffic queue backs up, the drivers with stop control have poor visibility of each other. This unusual traffic control seems to create confusion for drivers, especially for those unfamiliar with the area. So here are some existing roadway data. Here are traffic volumes on each approach. Note that the predominant volumes on Route 57 portion of Western Road, nearly 17,000 vehicles per day, and on Main Street, nearly 11,600 vehicles per day. The southern and northern leg of the intersection are posted for 30 miles per hour speed limit. The western leg of the intersection is posted for 35 miles per hour, and the eastern town road segment is posted for 25 miles per hour. The average speeds are anywhere from 3 to 8 miles per hour higher than the posted speed limit, and the 85th percentile speeds are 8 to 13 miles per hour higher than the posted speed limit. The 85th percentile speeds are the speed at which 85% of all vehicles are traveling at or below. Only 15% vehicles are traveling above that speed. We collected crash data for a 3-year period from January 2019 to December 2021 for this area, which includes the Merritt Parkway Ramp Terminal intersections. We reviewed the data to see if there are any repeated patterns or trends, and if there were any repeated contributing factor. There are a total of 29 crashes in this area during the 3-year period, with 5 crashes that resulted in minor or possible injury. Out of the 29 crashes, 80 crashes were front to rear end collision type. There are 1 each of side swipe and fixed object type crashes. There are 4 angle type crashes, which were either T-bone type crash or between a turning vehicle and a through vehicle. So out of the 29 crashes, 19 occurred at or in the vicinity of our subject intersection. As you can see, rear-end crashes were the predominant crash type at this intersection. Typically, rear-end crashes with lower severity injury are indicative of stop-and-go conditions in a congested area. We can see lots of uncertainty for drivers here as to who has the right-of-way, even those that may be familiar with the area because of the existing layout and the always stop control. Looking at the Merritt Parkway Ramp Terminal intersections, there were 6 crashes at the southbound Ramp Terminal and 2 at the northbound Ramp Terminal during the 3-year period. For these intersections, we focused on the crashes that could be attributed to Route 57 geometry and signal rather than the crashes contributed by the ramp geometry. As part of existing conditions review of the area, we collected traffic volume data in November of 2019, right before the beginning of the pandemic. The figure here shows number of vehicles approaching the intersection, but we also have specific number of vehicles turning left, right, or going straight on each intersection approach during the morning peak hour. And here's the volume data for the afternoon peak hour on each approach. As you can see here with the numbers circled in orange, there is a very strong right turn movement from Merritt Parkway ramp direction traveling south towards Main Street in the morning peak. Similarly, Eastern Road also has strong movement for right turn towards Merritt Parkway and towards Main Street. In the afternoon peak hour, you can see the heaviest movement shifts to movements from Main Street. It should be noted that the traffic volume on Route 57 from towards the Merritt Parkway ramp still remain very high during the afternoon peak hour as well. So when looking at it all together, we can see how the time of the day impacts the flow of the traffic, and which makes sense. This is important for us to understand as engineers because it means that any changes we make here will need to consider all approaches. If the movements were the same at all times of the day, maybe only one leg would need to be improved, which would be less impact. But the dual nature right off the bat tells us that the whole area needs to be in play. Okay, so we looked at a lot of data. So what do we do with it now? We've collected our volume data. We've collected other existing information about the network like speeds, lane widths, approximate property lines and such. And now the traffic analysis is a key part of quantifying the existing traffic operations. So how do we do that? We perform traffic analysis using the equations and information from the highway capacity manual, which is often implemented through a computer program like Synchro. The purpose of a capacity analysis is to quantify the delay being experienced at an intersection. Once you quantify it, we can use it as a basis of comparison for existing conditions and any alternatives developed. To do this comparison, we use a term called level of service, which is a measure of delay. Letter designations from A to F are used to represent the level of service for the traffic operations. Similar to a school report card, A represents the best and F represents the lowest level of operation. At level of service A, vehicle experience least delay, and at level of service F, vehicle experience the greatest delay. We generally consider the level of service D or better as being acceptable level of operation. While the thresholds are a little different when discussing a signalized versus an unsignalized intersection, the scale remains the consistent way to discuss this metric. So very quickly, how does Synchro work? Synchro works by modeling the roadway network in the program and inputting all of the relevant factors like traffic volume and the type of intersection control into the program. We create the roadway network in the program, modeling all of the approaches and turning movements. Then we input the traffic volume and existing control situation. In this case, stop controls for some movements, free flow for others. And just to see one example, this is the Route 57 Western Road approach. We can see that in the existing condition in the morning, Synchro calculates the delay per vehicle for this leg to be just over 62 seconds, which is a level of service F. The results of the traffic analysis shows that while the overall intersection of Route 57 at Route 136 operates at level of service E during the morning peak hour, the Eastern Road approach operates at level of service F. We also use other available data like field review or local knowledge to validate our analysis. One great resource is actually Google Maps, seen on the image on the right here. While Google doesn't tell you actual delay, you can see typical traffic flow, in this case on a Tuesday, where green means minimum delay and orange to red represents delay in increasing order. As you can see here, Eastern Road faces delays and queues extending to the Merritt Parkway overpass. Similarly, for the afternoon peak period, the intersection as a whole operates at level of service F. Only leg that is not a level of service F is Eastern Road, which again is loosely validated by the Google data shown on right here. So if the analysis shows something very different, it would be an opportunity to pause and ask if there's an error in analysis or try and figure out everything that does not jive. So with all of the background information collected, and we start looking at possible design solution to address the problem identified, which is what we'll discuss next. The proposed design solutions were developed to address the primary purpose of the project, which is to reduce the peak hour congestion at this intersection. A secondary opportunity is to reduce congestion-related crashes, such as rear-end crashes in this area. The goal of any proposed design is to provide the biggest possible improvement while minimizing the impacts and cost of a project. So before presenting the preferred design solution, I'll quickly go over some of the other options that were developed but not chosen as the preferred alternate. So for the proposed design solution, we started with simplest of the solution. What if we converted the bypass connector leg to a one-way in the southbound direction and removed the stop controls at the northern end of the bypass connector leg? While this did remove the confusion element at one of the bypass connector leg, it did not resolve the congestion issue. In fact, because we are diverting extra traffic towards the always stop control intersection now, with that high volume of traffic making left turn from Main Street towards the Merritt Parkway ramp, the intersection will continue to operate at level of service F with even longer delays. After realizing that an unsignalized intersection would not work here, we first performed a traffic signal warrant analysis to see if the traffic volumes were significant enough for a signal to be allowed here, and the answer is yes. First, we looked at signalizing the main intersection of Route 57 at Route 136 without adding any lanes. Traffic analysis results showed that the overall intersection will operate at level of service E with level of service F and long queues for multiple approaches for 2025 volumes, and it will degrade to level of service F for the design year volume. So after realizing that only installing a signal here without adding any lanes will not be enough, we started looking at options with additional lanes on various approaches. One such option was a 5-legged intersection with Wasser lane coming in as the 5th leg to the intersection. With the lane configuration needed for this layout, the impacts were greater to adjacent properties. Heavy movement from Western Road to Main Street was the controlling movement, and with the right turn on red eliminated to provide access to Wasser lane, the queue would back up to Merritt Parkway northbound ramp due to inadequate storage length between the two intersections. For yet another option, we tried to break apart the movements to make the Route 57 move the priority. This option turns Route 57 into a through movement and brings Eastern and Western Road in as side streets. Traffic analysis showed significant increase in queue on Eastern and Western roads. Again, due to proximity of the Merritt Parkway ramp signals, all that traffic queue waiting to turn left into Eastern and Western Road would spill back into the northbound ramp intersection. Also, we looked at more creative solutions. We had heard that roundabouts had previously been considered in this corridor. Roundabout design has advanced pretty significantly in the past few years. A single lane roundabout is ideal, has best safety benefits and cleanest operation because it has the least amount of confusion. With this location, we found that a single lane roundabout or even a hybrid roundabout with 2 lanes on some of the approaches would not work here. Between the morning and afternoon traffic flow direction, we would need a 2-lane roundabout with 2 entering lanes on all approaches. Review of multi-lane roundabouts in other states have shown that multi-lane roundabouts come with confusion in choosing proper lanes, confusion with yielding at various locations within the roundabout, and improper lane use, especially in communities without prior roundabouts. This option would also have greater impact on properties adjacent to the intersection. Also, the proximity of the Merritt Parkway signal will have adverse effects on the roundabout operation. During the red signal phase for traffic heading west on Route 57, the queue might spill back on the roundabout, creating a gridlock effect on the roundabout. That's why this option was not chosen as the preferred alternate for this location. But if anyone is interested in learning more about roundabouts in general or about roundabouts in our state, a simple Google search with term CTDOT roundabout will bring up DOT's roundabout information website. And so finally, we arrive at the suggested preferred alternative you see in the graphic here. Out of the various options and lane combinations we looked at, the options shown here with Wasser lane coming in as an offset intersection provided the best traffic operations with the least impact on surrounding properties. The dark gray color represents proposed widening, the lighter gray represents existing pavement, orange represents sidewalk, and the light yellow with the red crosshatch represents pavement removal. It is proposed that the roadway be widened to provide adequate number of lanes as shown in the plan here to provide efficient traffic operations. The through lanes are proposed to be 11 feet wide and the turning lanes are proposed to be 10 feet wide. Minimum values allowed by our design standards for lane widths were selected to minimize the impact to the private properties. Currently, there are sidewalks on all approaches which will be replaced and crosswalks will be installed as well. Route 136 is a part of bicycle power loop on the town's plan of conservation and development and is also on state's on-road bicycle planning network. 5 feet wide shoulders are proposed on the state roads to accommodate bicycles to be in line with the town's vision so that this intersection does not become a pinch point if a bicycle lane were to be proposed here in the future. This is also in line with state's goal to provide multimodal accommodation for different types of road users. As for the traffic signal itself, we are proposing to install a traffic signal at the main intersection of Route 57 and Route 136. There will be a traffic signal at the intersection of Route 57 and Wasser Lane as well, which will operate with the same controller as the main intersection. Green light for Wasser Lane will come up only when there is a vehicle waiting on the Wasser Lane approach. We are also proposing to replace the traffic signals at the end of the Merritt Parkway ramp terminals as a part of this project, which are at the end of their expected service life to take advantage of some of the cost-saving benefits that come with lumping the signal work together. While performing the traffic analysis for these intersections, we noticed that the storage length for the left turn lanes into the southbound on-ramp is inadequate during the morning peak hour. So we are proposing to restrike the lanes to provide the longer left turn lane. There will be no impact to the Merritt Parkway Bridge, and widening is not anticipated to accommodate the extended left turn lane. Here are the results for the traffic analysis for our preferred alternative for 2025 and 2045 traffic volumes. 2025 is what we call the beginning of operation year. We use the results for this year to quantify the anticipated level of operation in the opening year. And 2045 is what we call design year. We use the results for the design year to see how the traffic operations would be in future to ensure that the investment we make would provide benefits up to a reasonable time in the future as well. With the proposed improvements with the traffic signal, the intersection will operate at level of service C for 2025 and 2045 morning peak hour volumes. If we were to do nothing, which is called the no-build scenario, the intersection will continue to operate at level of service E for 2025 traffic volume, and level service will degrade to F for 2045 traffic volumes. Similar to the morning peak results, with the proposed improvements, the intersection will operate at level of service C during the afternoon peak hour for 2025 and 2045 volumes. In the no-build scenario, the intersection will continue to operate at level of service F. This graphic here shows the anticipated property impacts on 9 properties adjacent to the intersection identified with letter A. The red line shown in the graphic represents approximate street lines based on the town's GIS database. A full 3D survey will be performed when the project moves to the design phase to establish these right-of-way lines. At this time, it is anticipated that partial property acquisition will be required from these 9 properties. Initial coordination meeting with some of these property owners was conducted last month, and further coordination will be conducted as design progresses. Rights to grade, slope, and construction easements may be required, which will be determined during the design phase. With that, I'll pass it on to Matt Giannakopoulos from our rights-of-way unit to go over the right-of-way process.
Thanks, Sharada. Good evening. My name is Matt Giannakopoulos. I'm from the department's Division of Rights-of-Way. It is our office's responsibility to acquire the property rights that are needed for transportation projects. And as Sharada outlined, our proposed concept would require the acquisition of property rights. So I'm here tonight to give you a brief overview of our process. Keep in mind, though, we're still in the conceptual phase of the project design, and it's not until we move into final design that we know exactly what property rights would be required, and we're ready to begin the process. Any rights that end up being required will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes sections 13A-73 and 13A-98E, and whenever there's federal money used in any phase of a project, the department must adhere to what is called the Uniform Act. Once the design has progressed into final design and we're ready to begin the right-of-way acquisition process, each affected property owner will receive a letter of intent to acquire from our office, along with a property map which depicts the exact rights to be acquired. You can see an example map on the screen there. At that point, we will determine the fair market value of the property rights that are acquired, and we use that to establish an offer of just compensation. That offer is then sent out to the property owner in writing, and a negotiator from our office is available to meet with the property owner, and they can explain the project, the specific impacts to their property, and they can explain how the state developed their offer. The property owner will have a reasonable time to consider the offer and enter in negotiations if they choose. Once an agreement is reached, the DOT does all the necessary paperwork to effectuate that transaction, and they record the deed and the property map on the town land records. If negotiations reach an impasse, in order to keep the project on schedule, the department may acquire the rights it needs through its power of eminent domain. So what happens in that case is the DOT files a notice of condemnation in the local superior court, along with a monetary deposit in the amount of the state's offer of just compensation. The property owner would have 6 months from that date to appeal if they thought that the state's offer was inadequate. Now, whether or not they choose to use their right to appeal, the money that is deposited in the court is available to be withdrawn by the property owner at any time. So I know a lot of people, they hear eminent domain, they think, oh, the state's just going to take everything they need or my house for $1, but that's not true. The property owners are entitled to at least that state's offer of just compensation, the fair market value of those rights, and the state only takes title to the property rights that are needed for the project. I'm happy to answer any questions pertaining to the right-of-way acquisition process once the presentation has concluded, but in the meantime, I'm going to hand it back to Shraddha to wrap up.
Thanks, Matt. As for the other impacts, at this time, we are anticipating relocation of 11 utility poles shown as pink circles in the graphic here. Relocation of 1 fire hydrant shown in blue circle is anticipated as well. As for staging and sequencing of construction activities, that will be decided during the design phase in coordination with the town. Access to residents will be provided at all times. Also, not reflected anywhere on the plans here, but part of our concept development process is to conduct what we call an early resource screening, where we request a review by our colleagues in the Office of Environmental Planning, where they review available data for endangered species, culture or historic resources, and other environmental information. While a more in-depth review is going to be conducted during the design phase, when the impacts are better quantified, our initial review did not uncover any significant concerns here. As for the estimated project cost, the total construction cost for the project is estimated at $5 million, and the total project cost is estimated at $6.25 million. The rights-of-way costs are preliminary at this time, and based on the feedback we received at the property owners meeting, we'll continue to refine the cost as the design progresses. We are looking to fund this project with an 80% federal and a 20% state contribution. There will be no town contribution required. So for the next steps, the comment period for the proposed improvements we presented tonight is open until June 24th. You can contact us through email, chat, or phone, which we'll provide in the next slide. After the end of the comment period, we'll determine the level of support from the community and the town. If this concept receives support, we would advance it to the design phase, where the concept would be defined and developed to the point where construction plans are generated. As for the anticipated project schedule, as we mentioned earlier, we are in the concept development phase right now. If the project is to move forward to design, it will take 2 to 3 years for design and approximately 1 to 2 years for construction. The design team will hold another public information meeting such as this one at the end of the preliminary design phase to present the refined plans and findings before finalizing the construction plans. This concludes our formal presentation. At this time, we would like to welcome any questions, comments, and feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Shraddha. Good evening, everyone. As previously noted, my name is Jennifer Usher, and I will be the MC for tonight's question and answer session. Again, thank you all for attending tonight's presentation. As indicated, we are in the very preliminary phases of this project, and we want to engage the public and make sure that any questions, comments, and concerns are heard and considered. That being said, I just want to remind everyone that there's multiple ways to submit your questions or comments should you have them. Again, the first is by email, which is at dotproject-158-009@ct.gov. The second is by phone. You may leave a voicemail at 860-944-1111. If possible, please include the project number in your or location in your message. And the third is by utilizing the MS Teams live event chat. As a note, this function is only available during tonight's live presentation. For those of you viewing this event via YouTube Live, you will not have access or be able to view the MS Teams live event chat function. However, should you have questions or comments, you can submit those through email or phone. And again, the email and phone numbers can be found in the description under the video screen. Please keep in mind, you may need to copy and paste the email into your preferred email platform. And so with that, we will open the Q&A session. I see we have several questions that are up in the queue. And the first one is from a resident asking, will the traffic signals at this location be synchronized with the 2 signals at the entrances to the Merritt Parkway? And I'm going to hand that question over to, let's see, I believe, is Sharada going to be able to take that?
Yep. Yes, so as we mentioned, the Merritt Parkway ramp signals will be replaced as well, and the new signal will be coordinated with the ramp signals to provide the best efficient traffic operation. Thank you for the question.
Great, thank you very much. And I do apologize, we do have a little bit of a delay when we're switching speakers, so just bear with us, but we will certainly get to all your questions this evening. Another question has come in, again from a resident, asking, is it possible to have a signal at this location with the appropriate traffic trip function that doesn't involve huge industrial stations? And let me see, who can I hand that off to? I will hand that off to Sharada again, thank you.
So I'm going to guess here that the huge industrial stations means the what we call the mast arms, where the traffic signal heads are supported in a horizontal steel arm, which is supported by the vertical steel pole on the side. So we do not know yet what kind of traffic signal support would be here. That is something that will be determined by the design team during the design phase. The other type of signal support is the span wire, which you see right now in the Merritt Parkway ramp terminal intersections, where the signal heads are supported on a wire that is supported on the steel pole. So we do not know yet what kind of supports would be here. That will be presented by the design team at the end of the preliminary design phase. Thank you for your question.
Great, thank you again. All right, our next question is, what will happen to the area where the old roadway is to be removed? Will it just be open space, and who will maintain it? And let's see, can I turn that back to Sharada again? Thank you.
So the existing bypass connector leg pavement will be removed and the area will be grassed. It will be remain within state right of way, and the DOT maintenance forces will maintain it. Thank you for the question.
All right. Our next question is a roundabout being considered for this intersection? And I'm going to hand that over to Marissa Pappinger.
Thanks, Jennifer. So as we noted, as part of our alternatives analysis, we did look at roundabouts. We actually looked at a number of different possible layouts based on the traffic volumes that were presented out there. The roundabout layout that would be necessary in order to accommodate all of the traffic is what we would call a 2x2 roundabout. So 2 entering lanes on every approach and 2 circulating lanes. The most efficient and the most and the type of roundabout that is shown to provide the best crash reduction is a single lane roundabout. And so the double lane roundabout, and I believe Sharada noted this during the presentation, the double lane roundabout, while it still does provide better operations than certain types of traffic signal controls, the operations tend to be a little bit more confusing for motorists as they are entering. Where am I supposed to yield? Am I supposed to change lanes in the roundabout? And so ultimately, the 2-lane roundabout is less preferred than if we had been able to move forward with the single-lane roundabout. It's also important to note that the layout of that 2-lane roundabout did have some impacts on the surrounding properties, more so than the option that was presented today as the preferred alternative. And then also finally, one of the major components for why a roundabout was not selected as a preferred alternative was because of the proximity of the intersection to the northbound Merritt Parkway ramp terminal. So often what can happen, and what happened in this case, is if there's a closely spaced traffic signal to a roundabout, the efficiency of the roundabout itself can actually overload the traffic signal, and that signal ends up queuing backwards. The queue extends backwards. And in this case, that's what happened. It queued back into the roundabout and actually created a gridlock type of situation, and the overall operations for the whole area degraded. So yes, it was considered. Yes, we did do different analyses types to look to see, how best to try to make a roundabout work, or how to try to incorporate that particular design as one of the alternatives. And ultimately, the proximity of the the northbound Merritt Parkway ramp as well as the larger impacts were the reasons that that was not selected as a preferred alternative. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. All right, let's see. We have another question coming in. This one from a resident asking, the homes on Wassel Lane enclosed in the purple boxes, in what way are those homes or these homes going to be affected? Let's see, can I turn that over to Sharada? Thank you.
So the purple boxes only indicate the property lines. It does not indicate any property impact or acquiring anything at all. The only change to Wassel Lane properties is that the access point is changed and is now going to be signalized, but there is no actual property impact. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Sharada. All right. And let's see, our next question is, have you looked into the site distance concerns for the property of 18 Weston Road that were brought up at the last meeting? And I will turn that back over to, let's see, Marissa. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. As part of our public involvement process, for those that were not in attendance, we did hold a separate meeting with some of the property owners that are immediately surrounding the intersection. And there were some questions that were raised at that time, this being one of them. One of the questions that was raised was whether or not the site distance coming out of the driveways around the intersection would be impacted by the additional lanes that are provided. At this point, at the time of our meeting, we have not had a chance to look into that, but that does remain an action item for us as a follow-up from this meeting, as well as any other items that may be daylit through this process or any questions that might be raised. I would request that anyone that does have a specific concern with their address, please reach out to us after the meeting via the email link that is provided. That's the best way for us to be able to follow up directly if there's a specific property question. Thank you.
Okay, and again, just as a reminder, that email is dot.project pp-158-009@ct.gov. We have another question that's come in. This is from an anonymous resident or owner here that says, a neighbor noticed some traffic counts being conducted at this intersection this week. Do you know if that was related to this project? And were the traffic counts used for the study collected during COVID? And I'm going to hand that over to back to Marissa Paffinger.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm not sure what the counts were, honestly. That is something that we will look into on our side. It was not related to the work that we had specifically done. As to the traffic counts themselves, the counts that we used, the existing condition counts, were taken in November of 2019, so just before COVID. The collection of traffic counts has been certainly challenging with changing traffic patterns. If this were to advance to design, we would recommend that the design team reevaluate the volumes just to make sure that there is nothing that has substantially changed. But the volumes that we did use for this were taken pre-COVID. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marissa. All right. This is coming in from Matt S. And he is asking, what disruptions should the residents of Wassel Lane expect? I will pass that over, I think, to Sharada.
So for the actual disruptions, I'm guessing like this is about during construction. So again, we have not decided what the staging and sequencing of the construction would be. The design team will present the construction plans like as to how it will be staged and how the bypass leg would be removed and how the access to Wassel Lane would be provided during construction at that time. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Sharada. All right, let's see. I want to take a second here to take a quick break if you guys don't mind. Just to remind everyone again, the MS Teams chat function will be available to everyone this evening. However, it won't be available after this meeting. Should you have questions or comments, you will have until June 24th to submit those, and you can use either email or voicemail to provide us with some additional feedback. So thank you again. Let's see, we do have another question that came in from Anonymous saying, will we get a copy of the PP for reference to the traffic diagrams? Let's see, I'm going to hand that over to Marissa.
So the live version or a recorded version of this presentation will be available online. Our traffic volumes are within this presentation as well for both AM and PM traffic volumes and all of the turning movements. So that will be provided. As a follow-up to this meeting. I'm not sure the exact date that it's posted, truthfully, but it will be on the website. Thank you.
And I'm going to just take a second to thank Marissa for understanding that PP probably meant PowerPoint. I did not realize that, so I do apologize. Yes, and it will certainly, the recording will be available immediately following this meeting as well. So it's a video recording, but you would first see the entire PowerPoint and then also have access to the Q&A session, just to give everyone a heads up on that. Let's see, we have someone coming in, and I'm going to try to pronounce your name correctly. I apologize if I don't get it correct. This is from S. Benenowitz. And they are asking, why not consider a roundabout solution? Caramel, Indiana has been successful with complex, I'm thinking intersections maybe. Let's see, and I think I can hand that back over to Marissa. Thank you.
Yep, I'll just note that as discussed, a roundabout solution was considered. One of the things that the department is very aware of is some of the different communities around the country that have had a lot of success with roundabouts, Carmel, Indiana being one of them, Bend, Oregon being another. There is additional information about the department's use of roundabouts. Again, if a simple Google search of CTDOT and roundabouts will bring you to a specific web page. Contained on that page is a lot of great data about the crash reduction that we've actually seen specifically here in Connecticut, where roundabouts have been implemented, and they are certainly a tool that we look to utilize at appropriate locations. Again, given the footprint that would be needed for this particular roundabout and the potential confusion for the multi-lane or the less straightforward operations, I'll say, of the multi-lane, two-lane roundabout, it was not a great alternative or solution for this particular intersection. Thank you.
Thank you again, Marissa. All right, more questions coming in. This one is coming in from Trevor, and this says, my understanding is that the project is being undertaken due to safety concerns. If there are so few accidents and only 5 minor injury accidents out of 40 million vehicles passing through, why is the project being considered from a safety standpoint of view? Wouldn't it, would it be accurate to say less than a very small percentage of vehicles are involved in an accident and 0% in a serious accident? And let's see, I'll take that, Marissa. Thank you.
So this project was being initiated or is proposed primarily for congestion relief. So this is a proposed project that would look to reduce congestion at the area. That being said, part of our analysis and part of the work that we do when looking at different intersections or different corridors is trying to understand the full picture of what might be going on. So while the primary purpose of the project would be to reduce the congestion in the area, the traffic patterns and the crash patterns that we see out there are indicative of rear-end crashes, the types of crashes that are associated with congestion. So the primary purpose of the project would not be considered safety improvement. However, if we are able to address that congestion, there would very likely be, we would expect to see somewhat of a reduction of that type of rear-end crash. So thank you for that question. That's a great point to be able to bring home, that the primary purpose is not safety, but is in fact congestion relief.
Thank you again, Marissa. All right. Matt S., just noting, this is not a question, just want to say thank you. This intersection has been awful for years and your work is much appreciated. I think the project team really appreciates hearing that. I know they put a lot into not only this project, but into this evening's presentation and ensuring that, they're getting information out there, making sure that they've gotten feedback and, hopefully can address kind of the wide variety of concerns that are coming in. So we really do appreciate that you've taken some time out of your evening just to kind of join us and give us this feedback. So thank you. Let's see. And our next question is, isn't the traffic on Wilton Road and Post Road and Riverside traffic worse than at this intersection? And let's see, Marissa, I will hand that to you.
So that's a difficult question to answer right now. That would certainly be something that I would encourage you to send as an email, and we can follow up with some more specific information. It is important to note that while some intersections might have worse congestion than others, there might be different reasons why trying to implement a standalone project would be less feasible or certainly more potentially expensive or impactful when comparing one location to another. So Post Road, I know through Fairfield County, is generally referred to as Route 1. There are other studies being conducted on Route 1 throughout Fairfield County in general. It's certainly a corridor that we know carries a lot of traffic, and that the challenges tend to be very different for that type of location versus something like this, where even though we do have a lot of proximity to the Merritt Parkway itself and those signals are closely spaced, it's a very different animal than approaching something with Route 1. So I would encourage you to follow up with an email, and we can provide maybe some more specific information if you are curious about that, in fact. But just noting that the type of area and the type of proposal really comes together for this particular location, and that we, again, we're looking at it at a request from WestCog. So thank you for that question.
I just want to take a minute to remind everyone, we do have a lot of questions coming in, and we will certainly get to all of them. Just please be patient. Hopefully you'll see that our moderator, Quinn Duffy, is just noting that your question has been received. But just be patient and we will get through those. And again, if you are on YouTube, you will not be able to use the MS Team live chat function. However, you can contact us through the email and phone number provided. And with that, I will go on to the next question. This person says, I would like to know more on how Wassel Lane will be impacted on each proposed alternative. And I'm going to hand that over to, I think, Marissa. Thank you.
Sure. Yep, sure thing. So, so for most of the alternatives considered, including the preferred alternative, the actual properties along Wassel Lane would not be impacted. The property at 1 Wassel Lane, which is the one at the very end of the roadway to the south, the proposal does involve essentially wrapping the new outlet point around that parcel. So no impact to the parcels or the properties on Wassel Lane itself. However, that one property would have a different outlet point for where the road does touch down. One of the things of the concept to note, and Strada did go over this, is that Wassel Lane would now be controlled by the same traffic signal. So as residents or vehicles were coming out of Wassel Lane, and they would come up to that stop bar, that place to stop and wait for the traffic signal, that light would only turn green and allow them access out when there was a vehicle present. So no impact to the properties on Wassel Lane except some minor reconfiguration of 1 Wassel Lane. And then, access would be changed by providing a traffic signal to allow them to exit when the light turns green. Thank you.
All right, hopefully that person's question was answered. And next one coming in from Clark asking, you already noted that speeding is already an issue in this intersection. How will installing a traffic light that will enable even more excessive speeding make this intersection any safer? How will you address the fact that people will speed even more to get through a changing light? And let's see, I'm going to, hand that over to Strada. Thank you.
Unmuted now. So we did hear about the speeding concerns during the property owners meeting as well. I wish everybody drove at speed limits, but the matter of the fact is people don't. So what we have seen with the data we collected around the state is that the average speeds are usually about like 5 miles per hour higher than the speed limit, and the 85th percentile speed limits tend to be about 10 miles per hour higher than the posted speed limit. And which is what we saw here over here too, like the average speeds were about like 3 to 8 miles per hour higher, and the 85th percentiles were about 8 to 13 miles. So we are already in that ballpark range, and we have a few traffic signals in the area, including one about like 1,500 feet south on Main Street at Clinton Avenue intersection. So we are not expecting any dramatic increase in speed just because of this new proposed signal. Like the speeds looks like already are in the anticipated range. So we anticipate it will continue to remain around that speed. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Strada. Fantastic. Appreciate that. All right. This question actually has come in through email. And this person is asking, has the introduction of an exit 43 off the Merritt been considered to reduce the volume of traffic in the area? If the additional entrance exit were adopted, could the projected efficiency grade of a C in 2025 be increased to an A? All right, and I'm going to hand that over to Marissa. Great question.
That is a great question. So the short answer is no. The redistribution of traffic, if a new exit was introduced, a new exit 43 was introduced to the Merritt, was not part of this analysis. That would be a pretty significant undertaking, quite frankly, from a traffic distribution and modeling point of view, but it would likely alleviate some of the traffic. I think that's one of the sort of bigger picture questions that we're going to take back to our office and probably think a little bit more on. I think that it's unlikely that it would go to a level of service A, especially as traffic volumes resettle out. But the type of things that would need to be considered to truly answer that question would be a complete traffic model of the entire area with an understanding of the origin and destination of every car that's currently utilizing the existing exit. And then essentially some interpolation of the different types of vehicles or the different traffic routes that might utilize exit 43 instead. So that's a very big question to answer, but the short answer is that no, that type of major distribution was not considered for this particular location. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. All right, and this is coming in from James, and he is asking, how does your traffic operation analysis take into account GPS applications rerouting non-local traffic through this intersection as an alternate route? That's another good question, and I'm going to hand that back to Marissa.
That is another good question, and we actually receive this question quite frequently. So one of the things that is very difficult to capture is rerouting. So if the Merritt is backed up and people are trying to get to 95, or if 95 is backed up and people are trying to get to the Merritt, recognizing that GPS applications do divert onto local roads. Part of what we try to do as our typical analysis is to make sure that when we are collecting volumes, that there was no major incident on that particular day, that there wasn't something that would skew the data one way or another. And then we also try to validate using those typical traffic operations, again, with sources as simple as Google, to try to understand whether or not the analysis that we're seeing and the results that we're seeing and the potential queues that are building up are consistent with that typical type of traffic. So it's hard to accommodate or to take into account a single day type of diversion, but we do try to collect traffic counts and we do try to use information that is indicative of what would be considered a normal day. But that's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you again, Marissa. All right. See, we have another point here, a question from Clark saying your data shows very few cars turning right or left from Weston Road heading north toward the Merritt. How do you justify adding 2 more lanes to this road? And can I hand that question, let's see, over to Shraddha? Thank you.
So I'll try to explain this in a little technical term. You are right that the traffic heading west on Western Road is not very high, but in the afternoon peak hour, what happens is there's a very high volume of traffic in Main Street going towards the Merritt Parkway ramp. So that Main Street northbound volume and the Western Road westbound volume, they form what we call a critical group. So they are competing for the same time during the afternoon peak hour. So it was either provide 2 lanes, through lanes on Western Road, or provide a double left turn lane on Main Street. So what that double left turn lane on Main Street does is we would have to shade out the area of that in front of that extra double left lane and shift the through lane, which would mean there will be more property impacts and sort of like wasted area on the Eastern Road approach to shade out the extra pavement in front of that double left created. So one of our objective was to reduce the property impacts. So because we are mindful of the private property impacts. So that's why even though the volumes are not that high on Western Road, it was a 2-lane approach to accommodate that traffic and time consideration. So it's a little technical. Hopefully, I try to explain. I explained that in some way. Thank you.
Thank you, Shraddha. No, that was a great explanation. Thank you very much. All right, this is coming from Jason Burkhart, and he is asking, at the last meeting, I raised several concerns. Have you looked into the safety hazards created by the proposed plan for the driveway of 18 Weston Road? And actually, I believe, yep, Marissa can answer that question. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Jason. So I think a similar question came in earlier. So we have not had an opportunity to follow up with some of the concerns that we heard at the property owner meeting, but that does remain an action item for us following this meeting. Again, I'll speak, I guess, directly to Jason here. Thank you for your comment. You will be, I think, as we have an opportunity to look at some of those sightlines and to look at some of the specifics for your location, we'll plan to follow up with you via email and provide some follow-up to what some of your questions were. So thank you for that.
Thank you again, Marissa. And let's see, question coming in from James. Is it clear that the majority of the traffic is not sourced or traveling to Easton and Weston roads? Can you review how disrupting all 4 roads rather than creating a more direct route from the Merritt off-ramp in Main Street was a better decision than the current proposal? And I think a lot of time has gone into this proposal, and I think one of the engineers might be able to help answer that question. Let's see, we'll go to Marissa, thank you.
So I'll take a shot at this, but I might need to ask Shraddha to jump in to help as well. So the alternative that we reviewed that made essentially the Route 57, the Weston to Main Street approach, the primary approach, really the reason that alternative was not successful was that the turning vehicles from Route 57 Weston Road to Route 136 Easton Road, that turning volume combined with all of the other movements, the traffic signal phasing, and again, Shraddha talked about some of the technical elements of the analysis. The traffic signal phasing really did not provide enough relief for those movements. And so even though the operation for that, what is today, that through movement on that bypass area, while that particular one was more efficient, there was not enough room between the proposed intersection and again, that Merritt Parkway northbound ramp where the queues were backing up into that particular intersection. And so I hope that answers the question. I'm going to reread it just very quickly to make sure that I covered the different elements. All 4 roads rather. Yeah, so essentially that also comes back to the directionality of the traffic, where if the traffic was flowing in one particular direction, as it does in just the morning, it's possible that that particular alternative would have been more successful. However, because there is traffic flowing primarily, north to south in one peak and south to north in the other, the queues that were backing up into the adjacent signal, and the queue lengths were still very considerable. Thank you for that.
All right, great, thank you again. All right, let's see. This was again, this is from Jason Burkhart, just saying, I noticed individuals collecting traffic data at the intersection recently and just asking if that data could be shared. I think that was previously asked, or a similar question. It's probably just kind of been in the queue there. And I think it was noted that we were not aware of any traffic data collection that was happening at that intersection. However, I think Marissa said that she would look into that and see if there, what that was about, but we don't think it pertains to this project is kind of the conclusion. All right, great. Thank you for your question. And let's see, coming in from someone else saying, can you share the anticipated queue lengths in the 2045 build condition for each approach? Will the proposed improvements alleviate the existing queuing? And let's see, who can I hand that off to? I will hand that off to Shraddha. Thank you.
So we do not have the actual queue lengths handy right now. So, if you could provide your contact information in the email, we could get back to you with the queue lengths on various approaches for the 2045 requested. Thank you for the question.
All right, thank you, Shraddha. Let's see. Another person just saying, I appreciated the information and all was delivered with great efficiency, and more detailed information as this project moves forward would be greatly appreciated. So I think that's more of a comment than a question, but fantastic feedback to get. And again, we really appreciate, we know this is the evening hours and time to be spent with family and friends, but we appreciate you taking just a little bit of your time to help us out here. So Let's see, another coming in. This is a question saying, have any pollution studies been performed or will they be performed if, as currently proposed, will result in a significant increasing the number of lanes and stopped cars? And I'm going to hand that over to Marissa.
So this is a somewhat complicated question to answer in that air quality performance is definitely a part of the traffic or of the project design process. Generally, the way that this would be interpreted is that if a project is advanced, the changing of the lanes and the changing of the traffic control at this particular area would be modeled as part of an air quality conformity review that is required by the federal government. That's a process that every project that meets certain criteria needs to go under. The introduction of a traffic signal, the specific threshold is, I believe, if the level of service falls below a level of service C, there are different requirements to that. So I can't speak to the specifics of what the air quality or the pollution study would necessarily demonstrate, but that is part of the design process, and that is actually part of our being compliant with federal regulations. So thank you for that.
All right, thanks again, Marissa. This question's coming in from a resident saying, are you getting rid of the intersection bypass? And I think I can probably hand that over to Shraddha. Thanks.
Yes, so as you saw in the proposed preferred alternate layout, we are getting rid of the bypass connected leg, that area. The asphalt will be removed and it will be grassed. And I think we're, yeah. So that area where you see the pointer right now, that will all be grassed. The pavement will be removed. Thank you for the question.
All right, thank you. Let's see, this is coming from S. Fenowitz, and they are asking the design needs to, or just noting actually, that the design needs to include the Merritt exits as it will impact the intersection. So I think that's probably a comment or concern that is coming from that resident. And would someone like to speak to that? Give that to Marissa.
So the traffic operation of the two traffic signals at the Merritt Parkway ramps is part of the analysis and is considered. No geometric changes to the ramps are proposed as part of this project. That would be a much more in-depth analysis and likely require considerably more analysis, more geometric revision, potential property impact. So that is outside of the scope of this particular project, as the purpose and need is to address the congestion rates at the intersection. However, your comment about the impacts being carried through the traffic analysis was certainly done to model and include both of those intersections as well. So thank you for that.
All right, and just another question coming in, again from the same resident, just asking why include a special solution for Wassel Lane? A dedicated signal seems like overkill. And also just kind of noting, I'll just add, because it looks like these questions kind of go together, saying this is a massive increase in the number of lanes. Are we convinced it will increase the throughput? Let's see, and I can hand that off to Shraddha. Thank you. Those two questions.
So when we shared the traffic volume diagram, in the morning peak hour, what happens is there's a very heavy right turn movement from the Merritt Parkway ramp towards the Main Street intersection. And that heavy right turn does not slow down even in the afternoon peak hour. And in the afternoon peak hour, there is a very heavy left turn from Main Street going towards the ramp. So Wassel Lane coming in so close to the intersection, it will our analysts showed that the traffic waiting on Wassel Lane would have a very tough time getting out of their drive, especially turning left. That's why, and because there are a considerable number of residences at the end of the Wassel Lane, and that's why special consideration was given to Wassel Lane. Thank you for the question. Yep.
Thank you, Shraddha. Great explanation. Appreciate that. Let's see, this is coming in from a resident just asking how does reducing the roadway reduce, how does reducing roadway reduce the congestion? Oh, that's actually a great question. All right, and I think who wants to take that one? Marissa, thank you.
So from the traffic analysis, and I know we are referencing that quite frequently, the existing condition with the stop control, what we see with stop controlled intersections that are over capacity, which is what this intersection would be considered, the ability to need to essentially allow either only 1 or 2 cars to move through that intersection at the same time is not the most efficient way to process traffic. In addition, what we have at this location too is that we have, you know, on our skew at our northern and southern intersection, we have additional stops that are required because of that bypass lane moving in that north-south direction. So because of the bypass lane, which does accommodate a number of, you know, a high volume of traffic that moves in that particular direction, it causes cars that aren't using that leg to need to not only stop at the intersection, but also stop again. And so the actual volumes that are moving through the 4-way stop control, that contributes to the queues that move through the area, as well as the additional stop controls add additional delay. And then it was noted too that we've heard from a number of people that the confusion that can be caused by the irregular shape also contributes to that congestion and that buildup. So as to your question, how does changing that reduce the congestion? What a traffic signal does is a traffic signal assigns right of way. And so it assigns right of way. It tells you when it's your turn to go. And the traffic signal is timed to try to accommodate moving as many vehicles as possible through that particular phase. And so part of the reason that a traffic signal can be helpful for alleviating a full-way stop control is that it can better distribute the amount of traffic depending on where the need is. And that's part of the traffic signal operation. That's part of the way that the traffic signal is designed. So essentially with an all-way stop control, it's up to each person to, you know, to move through and to decide right of way for themselves versus a traffic signal where a traffic signal, the green ball is indicating that it's go, which generally tends to improve efficiency. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Marissa. Everyone's probably getting a good deal of knowledge about traffic engineering design, more so than they probably ever thought they wanted to know. But no, this has been a great evening to get some of that information out. So thanks, everyone. And let's see, we got another comment coming in. It says, this person just feels that the proposed solution is a bit extreme and asking why not start with just the traffic lights? Have you considered prohibiting left turns onto Main Street heading north on Weston Road? And let's see, I will turn that over to, let's see, Marissa, thank you.
So I'll start with this one as well, but again, I might need to tap into Shraddha if the specifics aren't clear. So why start with traffic lights? Or why not start with just a traffic light? So that actually was the first alternative that we looked at, was how to signalize the intersection as simply as possible. So could we actually reduce the queues that we see out there today without adding lanes or without generally changing the configuration? And what we saw was that by playing around with a number of different possibilities, that without adding lanes, the queues that build up when you do introduce that traffic signal, essentially when you incorporate what is now in that bypass lane into the traffic signal operation, that's where the queues start to build up, and that's where the additional lanes become necessary. As far as prohibiting left turns on Main Street heading west on Weston Road, I'm going to need to check a graphic real quick there just to make sure that I'm considering the orientation correctly, if you'll excuse me. So let's see. So have you considered prohibiting left turns on Main Street heading north onto Weston Road? So I think that is this movement. So in the existing condition today, that would be left turns on Main Street. I think that's this. No, so I do not think that prohibition of that move was considered because it is a heavier volume. If I am not interpreting the question correctly, I would encourage a follow-up, but I think because of the heavy movement getting towards the Merritt Parkway ramps and that being one of the movements that was certainly considered as part of the traffic operations process, I do not believe that we considered prohibiting that particular movement. If this is the movement that we're discussing, essentially in the existing condition, that free flow, 440 vehicles making that movement today. There are only a small number doing that at the intersection today because most people do take the bypass, but no restriction of that movement was not considered. Again, please feel free to submit another question if that does not adequately answer your concern. Thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Marissa. Let's see, this is coming in from Alyssa, and noting your slide notes that $250,000 that's allocated for resident compensation. The gentleman that said the state is fair in compensation, and just to be clear, that was Matt Giannakopoulos. There are many trees that will be destroyed by this project. Trees are extremely expensive. How will this be compensated? Will the DOT pay to have those trees replaced? All right, that sounds like a great rights of way question, so I will hand that over to Matt Giannakopoulos.
Yes, thank you for the question. So the $250K that we noted in the slide is just based on a very conceptual cost estimate. So not a lot of in-depth research was done to that, to develop that number. It was just something we use so we have a placeholder, so we have an idea of what kind of money we would be talking about. As we get further along the design and we can identify trees that are on people's properties that might be impacted by the project, that is considered when we develop that compensation. So we don't usually pay the replacement cost of those trees because it's just not practical to, replace a 100-foot or 50-foot tree. The appraisers typically assign what they call contributory value, and they look at what is the value that these trees add to the property. So that's usually how they develop compensation for things like that. Each appraiser, they have their license to use their judgment and determine what is fair for what's the fair market value for those trees. And of course, if you think what we're offering for those trees is not adequate, you definitely have the opportunity to negotiate with us and present data which helps demonstrate that what we're offering is not sufficient. But generally, we do not pay to replace large trees, and we pay what is called contributory value. But thank you for the question.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that response. Hopefully that answered Alyssa's question. If not, please just submit another question. We'll be happy to go back to that. This is coming from Senator Will Haskell, and he is asking, for those who might oppose any changes to this intersection, can you further discuss the impact of doing nothing? The no build scenario would lead to an F level of service, if I understand this correctly. And let's see, can I hand that over to Marissa? Thank you.
Good evening, Senator Haskell. Thank you for joining us tonight. So that's correct. So in our existing conditions, so what is out there today, I believe it was a level of service E and F. Shraddha, give me a nod if that's correct. That's yes. And so as traffic builds up over time, those projections, it would continue to degrade to an F during both the morning and afternoon peak hour. I think one of the things that's really important to note about a level of service F is that there is nothing below that level of service. So on the slide was some of the thresholds that are considered for what qualifies as a level of B, level of service B or D or F. But since there is nothing below it, anything above that threshold, that 60-second threshold, I believe it is, would be a level of service F. So you could have a level of service F that's just barely an F at around that 60, 62 seconds, or you could have 100 seconds of delay that would also be considered a level of service F. So that is one of the limitations of the A through F scale, is that sometimes as we do look into the future, it's if we're just using that A through F, the severity of the delay could be much more considerable, and it would still use the same clarification. And so those delay numbers were part of our consideration as well. And as the existing level of service in the 2019 numbers was an E for the morning and an F for the afternoon, looking forward into 2045 with the additional volume that would be expected to grow over time, those numbers would continue to degrade. So thank you for the question, Senator.
Thank you, Marissa. And we have another question coming in. This proposal results in a new version of Post Road. I am not supportive of this extreme proposal because it actually results in increased traffic, increased pollution, and increase in noise. This is a suburban area, and thus the proposal turns the Post Road, turns it into Post Road Part 2. So I believe that is more of a comment than a question. Shraddha or Marissa, would you like to just speak to that? Thank you, Marissa. I'll pass it to you.
So I would agree that this is more of a comment, but I will definitely acknowledge it. So the purpose of our meeting tonight is to present a proposed solution for the existing conditions that are out there today. And a part of the reason that we're engaging in this public feedback is to understand whether or not the public is in support of these impacts and how this would be received. And part of the reason that we're doing this before a project is initiated is that we really do want to understand and provide an opportunity for the public to hear what the solution is and to be able to share this impact, these feelings with us. So thank you for your comment. We'll certainly, all of the questions and comments that come in tonight become part of the record for this proposed project. So while I certainly acknowledge that the comment is not in favor of the particular solution, I do still thank you for submitting it. So thank you.
Thank you again, Marissa. This is coming in from a resident, and they are just asking, how will the speed limits change around the intersection? Let's see, do we have an answer to that question? I'll hand that back to Marissa.
So changing the speed limit would not be a natural or would not be something that we would immediately undertake as part of this project. There are processes in place for a town to be able to request a speed limit change. Both on local roads, they have more control over versus state roads. That process is through our Office of the State Traffic Administration, the OSTA office. So as part of this project, there would be no, at this point, there would be no anticipation of changing the speed limits out there. However, if that was something that was requested or desired over time, those mechanisms and those processes exist to inform that decision with a study before any change would be made. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. This is coming in. Oh, I think we may have missed a question here. This is from Trevor, just asking a question about safety. Let's see. Trevor, if you don't mind resubmitting your question, I'm afraid if we missed it, I don't see it above here, and it may have just gotten disregarded by mistake. So Trevor, if you're still on, oh, let's see, just coming in, it says, my understanding, I hope maybe this is the question. Again, it says, my understanding is that the project is being undertaken due to safety concerns if there are so few accidents. I do believe we actually did answer this question. It may just be that there was a little bit of a delay with us getting to it. Oh, actually, Marissa, it looks like you want to address that. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So sorry for the delay, Trevor. We did touch on that earlier, but I can go ahead and reiterate. So the primary purpose of this project is not a safety improvement project. It is actually a congestion relief and an operations improvement project. That would be the primary purpose. However, as part of our due diligence, when we are looking into potential locations, we do evaluate all of the existing information that we know. And so the crash patterns that we see at this area, a lot of rear end crashes, that is actually a crash pattern that's very indicative of congested conditions. And so while the primary purpose of the project is to alleviate the congestions, we would also hope or expect that some of those congestion related crashes would also be alleviated by addressing the area and alleviating the long stretches of queuing that are seen through this spot. So thank you for that.
All right, and it does look like we still have quite a number of questions, so we will get to every one of them. Just please bear with us. There might be a little bit of delay. We do have a lot of questions coming in tonight, which is great to see this kind of interest in a project that the DOT is putting together. I do want to just take a quick second to remind everyone that the comment period will be open until June 24th of this year. You can submit questions or comments using the email, the project email, or through voicemail during the next couple weeks. And again, the chat function will only be open tonight. If you are joining us through YouTube, you don't have access to the MS Teams live event chat. However, you can submit your questions again using the email or phone number. You will see that at the bottom of the screen if you just go to see more underneath the video. And so with that, we have another question coming in, and they are asking, can we add crosswalks on both ends of Daybreak Lane in order to safely cross? So this looks like a question revolving around safety, and I'm going to hand that back to Marissa, the project manager.
Yes, thank you for that. So crosswalks are currently proposed at the signalized intersections, and we are also proposing to either replace or install sidewalks that would lead up to the intersection and to surround to it. Some of the sidewalks that are out there today are bituminous, so not concrete. They blend in with the actual pavement. So we would be proposing to install sidewalks that lead up to the intersection and then cross at the intersection itself with the help of the traffic signal. As far as additional crosswalks not at the signalized intersection, so we would consider that to be a mid-block crosswalk. It looks like, so a mid-block crosswalk is just that, so it's not at a controlled intersection. That was not something that was considered as part of this proposal. There is sometimes some concern with mid-block crosswalks if the line of sight is not direct to them. So I would say that would be a follow-up item that if this resident is comfortable reaching out to us directly via email, we can provide some additional information about that proposal after the meeting. But thank you for that.
All right. And additionally, that resident can also reach out via phone if they would prefer, but email is probably easiest. A couple different ways to reach us. Let's see. Oh, thank you. This is coming in from Senator Haskell, just saying they echo the comment to thanking everyone. So we appreciate that feedback, obviously. Definitely a big tribute to Sharada and Marissa's hard work. And a couple other people just thanking us for the time. And let's see, another question just says, would you anticipate that adaptive signal controllers would be utilized at these intersections? Wow, everyone kind of knows their stuff. I'm pretty impressed. Let's see, who am I going to hand that off to? I'm going to hand that off to Marissa. Great, thanks.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do not have an answer for you at this point. There are a number of different ways that we can make sure that traffic signals that are in close proximity are communicating with each other. I do not know how far we have gotten into fully implementing adaptive traffic signal controllers. We do actually have a pilot project that's going on the Berlin Turnpike in Newington and Berlin. I believe that's the first project of its time to truly use adaptive signal control. As that pilot is constructed and gets underway, I'm sure our Division of Traffic Engineering and our Highway Operations Unit will be collecting data, and if it is a successful implementation, I'm sure we'll be looking to implement it at other spots. So not a hard, detailed answer, but adaptive signal control is certainly something that's being investigated around the state. And if this location met the criteria that's outlined by best practices, I imagine it would be considered. But that would be what we would call a design level detail. So great question. Thank you for that.
All right, thank you again, Marissa. And let's see, another question coming in from S. Benowitz asking, have the presenters spent time at the intersection in all hours of the day? Interesting question, and let's see, I could probably hand that over to Sharada. Thank you.
So honestly, no, not at the all hours of the day, but we did conduct a field review to see like what the traffic operations are. And again, like we presented, Google Maps was our alternate to compare the data. And we did talk to the town officials on like what the congestion levels were and what were the daily operations look like. So we have that sort of like, we did visit the field, but we did talk to the town officials to verify that there are actually conditions during those peak hours. I guess Marissa wants to add to that.
Yes, thank you. So Sharada is absolutely correct. So we did perform, a field review of the area. We did talk to local officials. We do have other data resources to tap into. Additionally, while it was not part of this particular investigation, in previous work, I have spent time down in Fairfield County and was familiar with this particular intersection. So that is not a hard data point to reference, certainly, but have driven through it numerous times at various times during the day. Frankly, I've tried to avoid it during the PM peak hour, if I'm being entirely honest about the experience that I have had down in that area. So certainly not at all times of the day, but trying to at least understand, a representative type of scenario from there, from talking with different folks too. I think it's also important to note that as part of our public involvement, hopefully we are speaking with folks that do have this firsthand knowledge. That's a big part of why we are also reaching out, that if your feelings or if your experience with the intersection, it does perhaps not align with some of the things that we've been talking about, that's excellent feedback for you to share with us, either tonight or in a follow-up, either via phone or or email. That's a part of our public involvement. That's a part of why we want to present these particular options to the public. So we would welcome any feedback in that regard as well. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you again, Marissa. And let's see, this is coming back from Trevor saying, do your traffic projections take into account work from home since the data is pre-COVID? And I believe that was partially addressed earlier because the traffic counts were taken actually prior to COVID. Is that correct? And yeah, I'll hand that to Marissa.
Yeah, so the changing traffic patterns have not been completely captured in this, but one of the things that we have done is looked at different, again, not recounting intersections, but looking at data that is available for how those patterns have shifted. For most of what we've seen across the state, and I'm not saying this is particular to this intersection, we have seen most volumes start to return to pre-COVID levels. But what has changed is that the distribution of traffic is a little bit different. So while the peak hour on I-95, or maybe that's a bad example, but the peak hour used to be, really focused from 7 to 8 o'clock, what we're seeing is that it might not be as bad from 7 to 8, but it might be similar from 6:45 to 8:30. So that actual span might be longer, but the actual densest time isn't as dense anymore. So no, these particular projections do not take into account work from home. But again, should this project move forward, revisiting the traffic volumes would be a key step for the design team to make sure that nothing, had dramatically changed from the analysis that we had conducted at this time. So good question. Yep, thank you.
Thank you again, Marissa. Let's see, this is coming in. A 16-lane C-level intersection seems excessive for the area and doesn't sound to be efficient enough to justify the project. What stops you from bringing the score higher, and how do you intend on ensuring this large of a project fits within the environment that is in the area of Westport? And let's see, I'm going to hand that back to Sharada. Thank you.
So like we mentioned during the presentation, our target level of service is usually about D or like lower. So like you said, like YC, right? If like we could reduce a lane and just achieve D, but the number of lanes and the level of service, they are directly not proportional to each other. So if you were to cut out one lane, then instead of going to a D, it will actually go to an E or F. So that's why, like, we looked at various different lane combinations. The options we showed today, like they are only a part of the subset we looked at. So it's not like we remove one lane and then we just hit that perfect level of service D, like it's not directly proportional. We got C, and one thing I would like to say is like the growth factor for this area, because it's already a mature area, it's not very high. That's why even if we have level of service C right now, that is going to be C for 2045 level service as well. So what that indicates is the intersection is not overbuilt for the 2045 volumes because that growth factor is low. So it is appropriate, right size for today and also for the future as well. Thank you for the question.
All right, thank you so much, Sharada. And let's see, we have one coming in again from Trevor, and he's just noting that fast highway access, in his opinion, is directly related to crime. Has any thought been given to this aspect of safety? Let's see, I'll hand that back to Marissa.
So thank you for that, Trevor. No, the direct correlation between access to a highway and crime was not a factor that we did consider here. However, that is something that we had not thought to do. So we will certainly make note of this question. I don't know what the direct statistics might be, but if we do have those available, we will look into that and make a note of that as part of our project record. So thank you for that question.
Thank you again, Marissa. Let's see, this is coming in from a resident, and they're just noting that this proposal seems far too large for this intersection, saying that it will basically turn the residential area into an area more like Post Road. They are noting that they are opposed to this design in its current form, feeling that it is much too excessive. So I think that's part of the feedback that we're looking for here. And do you guys one of you just want to maybe comment on that, or no, good with that? Okay, so no, we appreciate the comment. Again, that's exactly why we're here, is to really hear from the public, get your input. I mean, you guys are the ones that, you know, live around this area, are there quite a bit. So this is exactly what we're looking for. So even though you may not be in favor of the project, we really do appreciate the time that you've taken to join us this evening and provide that type of input. So just want to make a note of that. All right, this is also coming from Espenowitz. Another question saying, how has the proposal considered the town welcome element? This is a key entryway to the tow, or I think maybe to the town is what she was trying to, or she is. And I'm going to hand that over to Marissa.
So thank you for the question. So as far as the gateway treatment or welcome to the town element, that isn't something that we've directly considered at this point. It certainly would represent a change from what's out there today, which is again why we're out here soliciting feedback from everyone. So no direct consideration had been given to that at this point. It certainly does represent a gateway or sort of an entry to the town. If there was any desire to explore any particular signing, that's sometimes an element that can be incorporated into a project, but the specific details of that aren't really known at this time. So thank you for the comment, but no, that was not a consideration at this particular time. Thank you.
All right, thank you again, Marissa. And let's see, just a few more questions coming in, it looks like. Let's see, this person says, morning backup on Easton Road can easily extend half a mile, and will this be improved? See, I'll hand that over to Sharada.
So I'll quickly refer back to the presentation, and yes, in the morning, like even though the intersection level of service overall was E, the Eastern Road approach was the one that had a level of service F. And thank you for noting that the Q was like half mile past. The Google map showed, even though it's like slightly blocked in the image shown here, we did notice it up to the Mid Parkway overpass. Yes, so with the proposed improvements, the queue will not be that far along. Thank you for the question.
It looks like we just have a few more questions here, but again, we'll stay here as long as we need to answer everyone's questions, hear your concerns. If you are just leaving us, I'm just going to make a quick little bit of a kind of commercial here, if you guys don't mind. The project webpage can be found at https://portal.ct.gov/DOT Westport PP-158-009. At that webpage, you will find a voluntary survey. It is very brief. We would really appreciate it if you could just take a couple minutes to fill it out. It really helps us moving forward with these public info meetings, kind of as we're in this new pandemic world. We want to make sure that we're reaching out and getting the information out to you. So if you have any suggestions for us with the overall meeting format, we would greatly appreciate it. With that, I will go to the next question here. Oh, and I see that our moderator, Quinn Duffy, has put the project webpage as well as a survey link into the MS Teams live chat. So you can just click on there, make it really easy and take about 2 minutes of your time. Let's see, question just coming in, or more of a comment, it looks like, just saying, I'm opposed, this is from an anonymous source, saying they're opposed to the massive proposal. It's only increasing the number of cars and traffic, not reducing it. There is still going to be massive congestion no matter what. The town is increasing dense, affordable housing. This does not take into account an increase in cars. This proposal does not solve anything. Add another exit off the Merritt instead. So it looks like this person has some very significant ideas of maybe some other proposals that the department should take into account. So I think, again, we'll just make a note of that and bring that into all the project information that basically the project team is trying to gather. So again, we understand that you're not in support of the project, but we do appreciate your concern and your feedback. Let's see, any other questions? Okay. Another one just coming in saying, while I appreciate your efforts to reduce the congestion at the intersection, in my opinion, you are only creating an even larger scale of congestion as a result. I think that all of these added lanes of traffic create a city environment which is ill-suited to the small suburban town that I moved to. This large-scale project with all the multiple lanes seems out of touch with the area. So again, just another resident, I don't want to say just, but a resident just noting that they aren't in favor of the project. I know that Marissa and Sharada would certainly welcome any additional feedback that maybe all of you have as to what you would like to see out there, what you think would really help improve this area. So certainly if you can take a few minutes and maybe just shoot an email, certainly you can put it in the chat, or even leave a voicemail. That will be just additional information that the project team will be able to work with. And again, the email and the project webpage are up on the screen right there. Thank you. And let's see, we have, this is coming in from Jen Tucker, who is the first select woman. And she is saying, I'd like to thank the DOT and this particular team for their work on this intersection. Speaking on behalf of the town, we are committed to working together to ensure we have a safe and efficient intersection for our residents and our visitors. And let's see, Marissa, do you want to just maybe address that? Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you for that, First Select Woman. So as you know, we've been in conversations leading up to this point, and certainly are appreciative of you acknowledging the work that we've put in so far. We will be continuing to follow up with the town after this meeting and to share the results of not only the comments that we've heard here tonight, but also any additional feedback that we've received either from the phone line or from the website as well. So thank you for your comments. And as I think this looks like this might be the last comment for anyone that is still left on the line, I do want to again just reiterate that we are appreciative of you spending some time with us this evening to review the proposal, to try to understand how we arrived at it and to share your feedback about it. So thank you all very much. I'll turn it back to Jennifer to perhaps close this out. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marissa. And yes, yeah, thank you everyone again for just spending your evening with us on this Thursday. Just a reminder, the comment period will remain open until June 24th. You can submit your comments or questions through the email or phone number that you see up on the screen. Just once again, that phone number is 860-944-1111. Just leave a voicemail if you don't mind referencing project PP-158-009. That will help get it to the right people. Yeah, so I think we'll kind of conclude this. And again, if you just have a few minutes, you can take that survey. We would greatly appreciate it. It really does help us moving forward and getting this information out to everyone. So sounds like more to come on this. Thank you. Have a great evening.